Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. September is self-improvement month, and it's all about finding new ways to grow and become the best version of ourselves. My guest today, Dina Ovsepian, brings a fascinating perspective. She's a licensed attorney who originally went to law school as a personal growth experiment, and it paid off. Dina has built a platform where she breaks down complex legal cases and high-profile trials, but she also shares mindset and self-improvement strategies with her growing community online. From building resilience to setting boundaries, she helps people see that the tools for growth often come from unexpected places. Today, she's here to share how law, mindset, and self-improvement intersect. Welcome to the podcast, Dina.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
It's
having
Dina,
me.
right?
Yes.
There was this urge to say Dina. I was like, no, resist it. You said you went to law school as a personal growth experiment. Can you take me back to that decision?
Yes. So basically, my law school journey was after. So let me
Okay.
just take a step all the way back. So I have a best friend. I have a very, very, very dear friend who went to law school about 3 years before I
Okay.
began. And I remember when he started law school and he went to law school out of town. I went there to where he was going to law school and I was helping him set up and just get everything together. And I left, and I came back a few months later at the kind of end of his first semester of his law school, and I was met with a completely different person. I mean,
Wow.
this is somebody who had a lot more confidence. It was somebody who was more sure of himself. It was very obvious that something had shifted in his self perspective and the way he was asserting himself out in the world. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, I want that. Like, whatever it is that's having this effect on him, I want that for myself. And I realized very quickly that it was law school. It was the curriculum that he was in and what he was doing. And so when I saw him about 3 months after I had left, so I basically visited him when he was moving, and then I visited him again at the end of his first semester. And I noticed a very visible change in the way he was asserting himself in the world. And I thought to myself, I want
Okay.
that. Whatever it is that's having this effect on him, I want that for myself.
Wow. When you decided to take the decision, did you have any hesitation?
No, I did not have any hesitation. I had reason to myself that time was going to pass anyway, and that this was something I could give to myself that would have a direct benefit. So there was no hesitation in the decision. I made that decision when I was completely ready to make it, and I was very certain that it is what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Can you, why going through this decision, right? This decision is quite different from every other kind of decision because, it's a decision that it's more like every day you still have to make the decision of, I'm not going to drop out. Can you tell me what you learned about yourself while you were going through that journey?
While I was in
Yeah,
law
yeah.
school? So, first and foremost, it teaches you an incredible sense of logic. So I think one of the most impactful things that I learned, one of the most important things that I learned was to lean less into my emotion and more into my logic, which I think is very important because I'm able to make more reasoned decisions. And it also taught me a lot of resilience because when you are going through this process, oftentimes you're being met with a lot of challenges because it's a completely different way of learning. And there's very set structures within the system that have in effect, let's say, on the way that you perceive yourself. So definitely it made me a lot more resilient. It taught me how to lean into my logic a lot more. It allowed me to become much more adaptable, resourceful, and strategic. And this is just a byproduct of what you are learning to grapple with when you're in a completely new, intense environment. and you're out of your element a little bit, so you're not completely comfortable where you are, and you're having to navigate um, on your feet. You're having to think on your feet. So it definitely changed me as a person, and the reasons that I initially decided to embark on that journey, it definitely was fulfilled.
Yeah. Wow. What you just did, you shared some of the lessons. One of them is, thinking critically, right? Because like, and you also mentioned about adapting quickly. And prior to you going to law school and after the process, right? Can you contrast who you're, in fitness they say before, after, right? Can you, what was, how did you behave differently compared to, before you enrolled for the law school and you started the experiment?
Sure. So before law school, I would say that I was very
Mm,
emotional. I was an extremely emotional person who leaned into my emotions a lot. And even if I did not outright admit that, or even if I did not want that to be the case, I have to admit that personally, that was the case for me. I was extremely emotional. And a lot of my judgments, a lot of my decisions, a lot of my movement was made based on what I was emotionally feeling in the moment, versus after going through the process and after being in practice for a few years, I view things in a much more logical way. And I ask myself important questions based on what can be measured, right? So if you're trying to make progress, one of the fastest and easiest ways you can make that progress is by measuring what actually
mm,
matters. Prior to law school, I had no conception of
wow.
this. I this did not even occur to me, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
that this, might be something that I would look into, measure things to get tangible results, to see where you're incrementally improving. I think you also really learn to stand up for yourself and to question yourself a lot less. And I think for me personally, it was very easy, and I just have to stop and just say, it's not that I presented this way. What I'm sharing with you is what my inner world was. Right. So even though maybe outwardly I didn't present this way, maybe somebody speaking to me didn't know that I was feeling these things inside of me, but I was,
Yeah.
and it was really hindering me and how I was moving through my life, right? So it was very easy, let's say, for somebody that I was close to make me question myself, you know, to make me feel less confident or less than, or like I was not capable. It was very easy to get me to a place where I felt I had to prove myself to the people in front of me. And after the journey that I went through in law school, both through the curriculum and also
Yeah.
personally, it is now not easy to do that to me anymore. I became a lot more steady in who I am, and I became a lot more truly confident, not fake confident that you could just, with the blow of the wind, it goes away, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You go to TikTok account, mixing uh the lessons you learned as an attorney, and also bringing legal analysis, mixing it with mindset coaching. Uh, Prior to going to law school, did you have a platform, an account where you building a personal brand?
I didn't. I didn't, and that was the thing. It's that, I really wanted to start that out of my undergrad degree. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into new media, and I may be aging myself a little bit, but around this time, YouTube was just becoming popular. So this was quite a while ago, and I really wanted to do that. And the problem was that I was consistently starting these concepts. There were a lot of things that I wanted to work on and develop. And I would start something, and then somebody, a friend or whoever, would tell me, hey, you should not do that. You should do something else. You should do another concept. You should focus on something else. And I would listen. You know, that's the problem, and it's like, if I didn't fail, I just didn't follow through. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like,
Yeah,
I would never see something to completion.
yeah,
And I'm glad you asked this question, because actually it's very symbolic of why I even embarked on this journey, because I was too pulled left and right. It was very easy to get to me in that sense. So, yes, I had a platform, and then I had a second platform, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth, because I couldn't, even though my desire was always, I want to go back to the first, you
Yeah.
know? I didn't have the self-assurance to just listen to myself versus listening to the people around me. And I would say that's one of the biggest lessons that I always remind myself of. And if I were teaching somebody, or if I were mentoring somebody, mentoring is probably a better word, I would say know when to listen to other people's advice and know when to not, because it's not always right to listen to other people. You know, there's times where that advice is welcome and when it's necessary, and then there's other times where you just need to listen to yourself. And that distinction, prior to me growing up, we'll just put it that way, going through the schooling, starting my practice, you know, working in environments that challenged me and made me feel a bit uncomfortable, I was never able to successfully make that distinction. That was a huge reason why I decided to go on this journey.
Yeah. It's very important to be crystal clear on what we want. Sometimes we're just doing things because it's cool, right? And like we don't even know, like it's like, when you walk down, so you see during protests, you see certain people, they are protesting, they're rioting, and you walk down and you ask them, why are you protesting? Like, and then you ask them a question regarding the thing they're protesting. Like, okay, you're saying we should do this. Why do you think we should do this, right? Talk to me. What are some of the reasons? And like, and they're looking at you and they're like, oh, but this is what you're fighting for. You don't even know what you're fighting for. And using that analogy in
Mhm.
the same regard, most of the things that the goals we're working towards and everything, we don't even know why we're doing it in the first place. You're probably just doing it because, my friend is doing it. It's cool. Every other person is like, it's nice. And so when with this, it becomes uncool, quote unquote, we change, we do something else rather than, oh, yeah, this is what I really want to do.
Yeah.
I should stick to the end and see it through.
Exactly. Exactly. You need to have an unshakable sense of self, you know, is what I will say. And part of that is recognizing that maybe, you know, you don't have all the answers for
Yeah.
yourself. And maybe there's a place where you need mentorship. Maybe there's a place where you need advice and you need help. But you need to, when I say you, I mean just the
Yeah.
collective, me, you, everybody. Because it's very important to understand that there is a time to listen to other people and there is a time to listen to your gut, your intuition, your own logic, your own opinion, your own desires, you know? And I was never able to make that distinction before, you know? And I think that stems from possibly insecurity, um, possibly wanting to please others. And I don't know to what end, you
Yeah.
know, but for whatever reason, I had these traits in me and I wanted to solidify the opposite. Do you know what I mean? So it's sad for me looking back because I had all these ideas
Yeah.
and I had all these concepts. And now I'm seeing many people who are very successful, um, who've developed a platform on the concept that I originally started with,
Yeah.
you know? So who's to say where I could have been? But maybe that wasn't my journey.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
it is what it is, you
Yeah.
know, and I think it's really important to know that sometimes it's not always good to have the input of everybody all the
Yeah.
time.
One of the things that I like about your should I call it profile? Yeah, I should call it profile is the fact that
That works.
when
Mhm.
it comes to self-improvement, a lot of the creators, a lot of the people online on social media and all those platforms, they just talk, right? They have no depth to the message that they say. The message that they put out there, it's there's nothing wrong with the message. It's important, it's valuable, but the messenger is not like up there. What I'm saying is this: you have gone through because a lot of persons like they consume self improvement, but there is nothing that they're actually improving in the real sense of it. But you went through law school, right? you did something, and that itself was a self-improvement journey. And the same thing with, taking self-improvement and starting a business, right? That's also a journey, right?
Of
And
course.
I want you to talk about the importance of taking self-improvement not just as quote unquote self-improvement. Because other person, they read books, they consume content and self-improvement, they do all these other things, but they're actually not doing anything to actually improving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's consumption, and I think that tricks you into thinking that you're doing a lot when you're not really doing much. So I completely understand and I resonate with that. And yeah, so it does make sense. It absolutely does make
Yeah.
sense to me.
Uh, why do you think your combination of legal analysis with mindset coaching resonates with so many people?
I think I would say that, so I really did okay, let me preface this by saying, even before I went to law school, I've always been what you would call a seeker, right? So I've always been somebody who wants to improve, who's consuming books, who's doing all types of modalities and things that I can to improve, right? But I think that a lot of the things that I was doing was giving me more anxiety than it was actual results, right? Versus when I went through this, rigorous program and then going to the practice of law, as I said, and maybe this is not a popular message in the sense where what I'm saying is that it actually takes work, right? So while I believe in manifestation and while I believe in all of these lucky girl syndrome and all of these things, the thing that bothers me about what a lot of other creators preach, and as you're saying, there's nothing wrong with the actual
Yeah.
message that they're stating. I just think there's a lot of red tape and a lot is hidden behind the curtain because you're not actually telling me how to get from point A to point B. You know, you're telling me, oh, just think positive and think, but this doesn't. I mean, it's great, right? But
Uh,
it actually takes, you have to have the framework, right? So if I'm somebody who my entire life and this isn't me, I'm just bringing this as an example, like let's say I've been abused, I've been put down my whole life. Since I was a kid, I come from a very abusive childhood. And like I said, this isn't me, I'm just bringing an extreme example, right? Um, I don't have the framework to even understand what it is to feel good about myself, to value myself, to have some sort of worth, right? So instead of sitting here and saying, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, that's great. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. For me, and I can only speak personally for me, these words are nothing. You know, what is something is actually developing that sense of worth through the small things that I do each day so that I create a framework for what it feels like to be worthy, for what it feels like to win, right? So, one of the things I always like to talk about.
yeah, you were saying that the words mean nothing. I am worthy because at that point in time, based on the example you've given, and the hypothetical someone, you don't have. It's hard to like really understand for someone. It's hard to even comprehend it in the first place. And so I'm giving advice with a lot of assumptions. It's like if I'm teaching calculus mathematics, right? There's certain things I won't even talk about while I'm teaching that class because I'm like, I expect you already know these things, right?
Yeah, but exactly, and it's like I think that a lot of the people that are preaching these things don't even really know these things, right? So it's like you need to have a framework for what it's like to feel worthy. You need to have some kind of an example in your life. Like if let's say you want to be somebody that is successful, you need to have a framework of what it feels like to accomplish, right? So to develop this, it does not have to be complicated. You can develop the feeling of success by small wins, through small wins, right?
Yeah.
And look, I'm not giving some novel concept. This is things that I innately feel, but also that is well documented in books by people that are far smarter and more educated and understand these elements a lot more than
Yeah.
I do, but I just, it's like, for example, like let's say if you want to create the framework of success, right? You pick a small thing that you could accomplish every day, right? Let's say that is walking 10,000 steps a day, right? something small, or 5,000 steps a day, to whatever it is, something small. And you say to yourself, okay, my goal is that for the next 7 days, this is what I'm going to do. And you actually do it.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for it's a small win. Yes, okay, fine. You're not curing cancer. You're not, winning the Nobel Prize. But it's a small win, but it's still a win, you know? And now when you're going to accomplish that thing that's a little bit bigger than that, you have this framework of what it feels like to accomplish. You have this framework of what it feels like to win. So you can build on that. But if I'm simply going and saying, I'm successful, I'm a winner, I'm worthy, and I don't have the framework for that, that's not really going to go anywhere, And I think it's not popular for a creator to tell you that, because if I tell you that, all of a sudden, the idea that this can happen quickly, this is fast, it's a quick fix. Yes, like, let's do it. We can do this tomorrow. It kind of goes away, because what I'm suggesting is like, look, you can accomplish whatever you want. You can become whoever you want, but there are things that you need to do in the process in order to attain that. And that's something a little more than sticking pictures on a board and sitting here and saying nice words to yourself. That
Yeah.
all has its place. I mean, trust me, I like affirmations. I like vision boards. I like all of that. But the truth is that there has to be more substance, right? More steps. And I think that's what law school and practice of law really did for me, is it taught me steps, strategy, logic, right? So I took all those skills and I transferred them right into my own personal life and self, right? So I'm not looking for the quick fix anymore. I see like there is a method, right? And it comes with, I have to know myself. I know myself. I know how to work with myself. Okay, let's develop the frameworks.
Yeah. Listening to you talk about the frameworks, law school, it just occurred to me that you doing the work and studying and building something has given you an unfair advantage and a considerable level of depth to whatever you are going to say regarding self-improvement. Because first of all, you did an experiment to become better by going to law school. Like, who has the heart to do that? Okay, that's one. The other thing is that you studied law. I mean, it could have been any other thing you could have done. I mean, you could have worked for the CIA or the FBI. You could have joined the military, right?
I
You
could
know,
have.
because it gives this level of unfair advantage that any regular average Tom Jane Doe cannot come about to do. So what I'm basically saying, the thing I'm trying to pull out from your experience is people who want to improve self should try to live life, right? They should pick up something that they want to do and chase it, right? Whether doesn't have to be law, like everybody doesn't have to do law school. It could be something else. We all have this wider dreams and passion. Chase them rather than at the end of the day just talking, because what will happen is that this doing these things will push you to a level where you would learn and you would actually have instances to actually use the things you're learning rather than my morning routine, my evening routine, and all those things, which I don't really understand.
Here's what I will say, and I think, like, to your point, I agree with you. I mean, obviously not everybody, and I'm not suggesting that everybody goes to law school or med school or whatever. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting that. But I will say that I think there's somebody that asked me a very, very interesting question. And they asked me, if you had a microphone and you had one message that you were to give to the world, what would it be? Right. And I thought about that because I think it's a very good question. And I was very unprepared to answer it. But the message that came through to me was know thyself, right? You have to know yourself. That's your first assignment, number one, when you are born, really, should be to gather as much data as you can about yourself, right? Because if you know yourself, and I mean really truly, I'm not talking about the fantastical version where, oh, I'm this and I'm that, this really know your habits, your beliefs, what you're doing on a daily basis, all of these things, right? If I have a framework, a real framework for the type of person that I am, I will know how to work with myself. I will know what to give myself, right? So you're setting appropriate goals. You're setting appropriate goal posts. Not to say, a person who's like one way cannot achieve XYZ, but I'm saying there's a different process through which different people do different things. And what worked for me might not work for you or for somebody else, right? Or it might be exactly what you need, right? But how do you know that? You know that by understanding how to work with yourself, by knowing yourself, right? Um, I think it's the most important thing. And I think if you know yourself, if you truly know yourself, one, you're very lucky. And two, you're at a that is truly, I would say, you use the words unfair advantage. That is the greatest advantage of all. If you know how to work with yourself personally, then I mean, I think the sky is the limit. Like the world is basically yours, you know?
Yeah.
The
I
world
think
is yours.
that's why it's important to, especially for the young people, it's important to put ourselves out there, because you
Mhm.
see certain persons, they tell you, well, I don't do this kind of things, and I'm like, how do you know you don't like this kind of things? Have you done it before? Like, N-
Exactly.
like, no. Like, so how do you know that like you don't like like, in this regard, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about regular things, maybe arts stuff like music and all those things. And like, yeah, you've never tried it before. How do you even know if you like it or you hate it? And so in finding ourselves, we have to put ourselves out there. We have to like push to see what the edge, the limit is. That way we can then say, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
this is who I am. And because what do we have to reflect on if we have no experience? We have, yeah, there's a quote that the man who does nothing but think has nothing to think but thought.
Yeah. Oh, I like that actually.
Yeah, it's, I don't know who said it, but it's not my quote. Yeah, so
But also going back to what you were saying, like about the morning routine, about this and that, right? Like for example, you have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day and you have to do X, Y amount of whatever. Listen, I sleep late. All right. Like I
yeah,
can't, I'm never gonna be the type of person that goes to sleep at 9 p.m. and wakes up at 4. I don't want to be that type of person. Right. Like you have to, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna be any less successful than the person that wakes up at 5 or 4 or whatever and does that morning routine and all that stuff. But you need to know, like my success is not gonna come from forcing myself to wake up at 4 a.m. for 2 days and then getting sick of it and then it's going to come with what am I doing with the hours that I
yeah,
have, right? Like, how am I maximizing the time that I do have, the time that I am spending on? I think the problem, and I love social media. I think we live in the age of information. Obviously, I think it has its good and I think it has its bad, right? But I think this one type of solution, like one size fits all solution, is just not for everybody,
yeah,
right? It's for some people and it's not for others, right? And so I think that's I think the big thing is like what is for you. And in order to know what is for you, you need to know yourself, right? Like I can tell you, I'm never gonna be the type of person that wakes up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym. One, I hate the gym. Okay. And two, I don't want to wake up at 4. I sleep late, right? I sleep late, I wake up
uh,
relatively early. I'm just being real. Like I
yeah,
work out, I get my workout in different way, right? But I'm never going to be that person. I'll do it for 2 days and then the rest of it just feels like torture. It feels
yeah,
almost against my nature. But that's okay, you
yeah.
know?
I
So I'm
feel
not
like
going to sit here and
I feel like most of these, and I just noticed that we've gone over time, but I feel like most of, I can't remember the exact word to use, but oftentimes causation doesn't doesn't is doesn't necessarily correlate. Okay, in layman terms, what I'm trying to explain is that the fact that you're putting on the black dress and doesn't mean that that's the secret of your success. And so if I
exactly.
want to model you now, I'm like, oh yeah, Dina, what does Dina do? She eats this thing in the morning. When she wakes up, she does this. She doesn't go to the gym, and like that's what I would do. If I can just do that, I would. I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily.
It doesn't necessarily exactly. And it's like you have to like I said, it works for some people. It doesn't work for others. To me, that's torture. That sounds like hell, honestly, right? But for other people, it may work great. For me, something else works. But how do I know what works for me? Because I have a wealth of data on who I am, right? And I
Yeah,
can work with the framework of who I am.
I
I
think
can I can then say, okay, this is what I'm working with. How do we get this over here?
I think at the
You
end
got
of
to know who you are.
At the end
I
of the
think at the end of
day,
the day.
just do the work. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Just get us data and do
Do
it.
the work.
Exactly.
Forget about all this morning, afternoon, evening routine. Do the work.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
most of the
Exactly.
times we are doing all these things that look like the work, but it's not the work. And
It's not
do
really the
the,
work. Yeah.
I'm like, really? Is that it?
Yeah,
Ah, oh wow, this
exactly.
conversation has been really insightful and lovely. Thank you so much, Dina. Where can listeners learn more about some of the legal principles and the legal framework analysis you've done and also connect with you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This has been so lovely. To answer your question, they can find me on TikTok. Should I spell it
Yeah,
or
spell it, please. Spell it.
okay. Dina with an underscore Mikaela. That's Dina underscore Michaela. And that's my TikTok, and my Instagram is at MUSE dot OLOGY. So at Musology. And there you can find my other links and also all the legal analysis content and also self-development content that I
Okay.
create.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight to chat with you. I will put the links you mentioned in the description so listeners can just click and go directly to the site.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.